So think about how, your grandfather probably had a locked diary with one of those really flimsy brass keys.
Right, or like your parents having those hushed conversations in the kitchen when they thought you were finally asleep.
Exactly. We used to have actual physical containers for our secrets. You knew exactly where the boundary was, and you definitely knew who possessed the information.
And who didn't, yeah. You could control it.
Right. But today, well, you have a TikTok algorithm that will gladly broadcast your messiest divorce details to like 30 million total strangers in under an hour.
It is wild. The boundary is just gone.
It is completely gone, and that is exactly what we're getting into today. Welcome to this deep dive. Our mission today is to really unpack the death of the private family secret in the digital age.
Because it really is a death, structurally speaking.
Absolutely. And we have a stack of incredibly revealing sources in front of us for this. We're anchoring this deep dive on a brand new socio-technical report that focuses on algorithmic publics and crowdsourced vigilantism.
Which is such a fascinating framework.
It really is. And we are pairing that academic research with actual digital footprints. So we're looking at sprawling Reddit threads, these insane multi-part TikTok sagas, and the whole commentary ecosystem that monetizes the fallout.
Yeah, and to really understand this, we have to recognize that it's a profound structural shift in how human beings process domestic conflict.
I mean, the home has historically functioned as the ultimate backstage area of human existence, right?
Exactly. A place totally shielded from public scrutiny.
Ah.
But now we are essentially watching that private space being forcefully dragged to center stage.
By the platforms themselves.
Right, the algorithmic architecture of platforms like TikTok and Reddit, they haven't just blurred that line between private trauma and public entertainment. They have completely bulldozed it.
Bulldozed is the perfect word. And you're hearing the voice of our resident analyst, who is here to help us decode the underlying mechanics of why society is currently so obsessed with crowdsourcing the most intimate betrayals of total strangers.
I am very excited to dig into this data with you.
Me too. So I want to jump straight into the first concept from that socio-technical report, because it honestly shatters a very common illusion.
The fallacy of anonymity.
Yes, the fallacy of anonymity. When people post their family drama online, they usually think they're being, incredibly careful.
Right, they think, oh, I won't use real names. I won't mention the city I live in.
Exactly. They omit the specific name of their employer. They treat their story like a redacted CIA document.
Yeah, assuming that if they just black out the proper nouns, the text itself is entirely safe to share.
But the research shows that is just a comforting cognitive bias, right?
Oh, absolutely. Structurally, it is entirely false.
Yeah.
The report makes it definitively clear that on the modern internet, if you provide narrative details, it is mathematically and functionally impossible to remain anonymous.
It's impossible.
Right. You just cannot decouple a compelling narrative from its real-world actors once it enters what the researchers call collaborative intelligence.
Okay, that term, collaborative intelligence, I found that so fascinating.
It's a great concept.
It immediately made me think of distributed computing. Like, when scientists use thousands of regular desktop computers, taking tiny pieces of a massive equation to solve a problem that would just crash a single supercomputer.
That is the exact mechanism just applied to human psychology and open source intelligence.
Wow.
When a user posts a highly detailed story of betrayal, the algorithm distributes it to thousands, sometimes millions, of users. And these users instantly transform into parasocial vigilantes.
Parasocial vigilantes, that is intense.
It is, but it's accurate. No single user possesses the full picture. But one user might recognize the specific architectural layout of an office break room mentioned in passing.
Oh, right. Like, oh, I know that tile pattern.
Exactly. And another user might cross-reference a timeline, for instance, like a specific regional music festival the cheating spouse attended on a specific weekend.
And then someone else analyzes linguistic clues, specialized industry jargon, or local slang.
Yes. So they're essentially processing thousands of innocuous data points in parallel.
It's like a hive mind solving a mystery.
They triangulate these fragmented data points to reconstruct the subject's real-world identity, often in just a matter of hours. The traditional concept of a pseudonym is totally obsolete in an environment where collaborative intelligence is highly incentivized to solve the puzzle.
Which brings us perfectly to the first major case study in our sources, because we have a real-world example of this exact distributed computing in action.
The workplace affairs story.
Yes. So a daughter posted a multi-part storytime series on TikTok detailing this deeply traumatic family rupture. Her father had engaged in a long-term workplace affair, abandoned his wife and children, and started a completely new life with this former coworker.
And she thought she was doing everything right regarding privacy.
She adhered to all the old rules of internet anonymity. She never named her father. She didn't name the mistress.
Well, she didn't even name the state they lived in.
Exactly. And she certainly didn't name the company where the affair took place. She really thought she was entirely insulated.
But she provided a timeline. She provided physical descriptions of the workplace dynamics.
And she provided a highly emotionally resonant narrative.
Right. She fed the algorithm the exact fuel it requires to activate that vigilante network.
And the speed at which the internet sleuths dismantled her redactions was just terrifying. They took the timeline of the father's career shifts that she mentioned totally offhandedly, matched it with the physical descriptions of the corporate environment, and identified the company.
Just from that.
Just from that. And from there, they found the father. From the father, they found the new wife, the former mistress. But they didn't stop at just exposing their identities.
No, collaborative intelligence functions like a really aggressive excavation crew.
Seriously, they dug through the new wife's entire digital footprint and unearthed a public social media post she had made.
The legacy post.
Yes, the legacy post. In this post, she was bragging to her friends that the husband was finally going to have a son with her to, quote, carry on his legacy.
Which is where we see the transition from investigation to social sanctioning. The crowd doesn't just want to find the people involved. They want to punish them by taking ownership of their narrative.
And the method of punishment here was pure, concentrated satire.
Oh, it was brutal.
The internet latched onto that specific phrase, carry on his legacy, because it was such a grandiose way to describe a very mundane, destructive workplace affair.
Yeah, so the comment section just turned into a Moss medieval court.
It was hilarious, but so dark. Tens of thousands of people started congratulating Lord Tom on securing a male heir.
They were asking what vast fictional estates and noble titles this baby boy was going to inherit.
It's like watching a modern-day medieval court drama play out in the comments section. It was incredibly effective at completely stripping this couple of their dignity.
It demonstrates the immense power of algorithmic amplification. The digital public excavated historical data, applied a satirical framework, and permanently linked the real names, faces, and professional histories of these individuals to this specific scandal.
They created a permanent, highly visible, and highly mocked archive of this family's worst decisions.
Exactly.
But, looking at this structurally, I have to push back a little on the idea that the daughter in this scenario is just a passive victim of the crowd.
Okay, how so?
Well, if a user voluntarily gives the algorithm all of this data, aren't they effectively opting in to the digital Panopticon? Like, they want the validation of the crowd, they want the support, so they are actively trading their family's privacy for algorithmic attention.
I agree, they are initiating the transaction, yes. But they fundamentally misunderstand the terms of service.
That's a good way to put it.
You are right that individuals utilize these platforms to seek emotional support, to process trauma, or sometimes to enact a very specific targeted revenge. But they operate under the illusion that they retain ownership of the story.
Right, they think it's still theirs.
But the research emphasizes that the moment you release a personal narrative to the algorithmic public, you forfeit all jurisdiction over it. You cease to be the author. You become merely the inciting incident.
So you provide the raw material, but the crowd builds the actual product.
Exactly. The crowd takes your raw material, de-anonymizes the actors, and commodifies the conflict for their own entertainment.
The original poster might want a supportive ear, but what they get is a decentralized digital panopticon.
A million unseen eyes scrutinizing, archiving, and judging every detail. You just cannot control the mob once you invite them into your living room.
And that transition from seeking support to providing entertainment is really where the sheer scale of this phenomenon comes into focus. Because if collaborative intelligence explains how the internet finds you so quickly, we really have to look at how it manages to hold people's attention for so long.
Right, the endurance aspect.
Yeah, because we hear constantly that algorithms have destroyed our attention spans, right? That we can only consume 15-second dance videos. Yet our sources highlight a massive viral event that completely contradicts that.
the Risatisa saga.
The Risatisa saga.
That phenomenon is arguably one of the most important case studies in the gamification of empathy. It completely upends all our assumptions about digital consumption.
For anyone who somehow missed this cultural earthquake, Risatisa is a creator who posted a story about her ex-husband, whom she described as a diabolical, pathological liar.
But the format is what makes this truly unprecedented.
She didn't post a quick recap. She posted a 52-part saga.
52 parts.
Each video was roughly 10 minutes long. We are talking about nearly 10 hours of a single woman sitting in her car or her living room, speaking directly to the camera, uploaded over a span of just a few days.
And crucially, this was not highly produced content. There were no jump cuts, no background music, no kinetic typography to hold the viewer's attention.
It was just her talking.
It was the absolute antithesis of what social media strategists claim is required for virality. She hadn't even reached the threshold to monetize the videos when she started.
Wow.
The draw was entirely the raw authenticity and the staggering volume of the narrative.
The specificity of the lies she detailed was just paralyzing. You literally could not stop listening because the psychological manipulation was so extreme.
The lies were so elaborate.
Let's look at the mechanics of them. She suffered a miscarriage and needed to be picked up from the hospital after surgery. Her husband claimed he couldn't come because he was locked in a high-level corporate board meeting.
Which was completely false.
A complete fabrication. He wasn't in a meeting, and he didn't even hold the executive position he claimed to have.
And the cemetery lie.
Yes. He took her to a local cemetery to mourn at the graves of his beloved grandparents. Total fiction. They weren't buried there. He just walked her around random headstones to perform grief.
It's chilling. The manipulation extended deeply into the mundane aspects of their daily life, which is really what made the narrative so sticky for the audience.
Exactly. It was the daily endurance of the lie. She revealed that every single morning he would engage in a 1-hour phone call with his brother. He would walk around the house having these deep, animated conversations to maintain the illusion of a tight-knit family.
But there was no brother on the phone.
She later discovered he was talking to a dead line. No one was on the other end. He faked conversations with a non-existent best friend.
He even went so far as to tell a close family acquaintance that Risatisa had successfully delivered the baby she had tragically miscarried, and promised to bring this fictional infant over for a visit.
It's just insane. When we analyze why millions of people consume 10 hours of this, we have to look at the neurochemical reward of narrative completion, right?
Nice. The human psyche is deeply drawn to resolution, particularly when it involves accountability.
There was a brilliant comment in one of the sources from the Reddit forum, our pop culture chat, that perfectly captures this exact psychological grip.
Oh, I know the one you mean.
The user wrote, quote, "The real question for me hasn't been, why was this woman so vulnerable as to invite this terrible red-flagged man deep into her life? But instead, why am I so vulnerable as to literally drop everything in my life, stay up all night, and stream 10 hours of content at a moment's notice, and suddenly be all consumed with this story?"
That user is identifying the exact mechanism of the gamification of empathy.
The gamification of empathy, yeah.
We are not just passively watching a story. We are actively participating in a forensic audit of a human relationship.
Because normal TV just doesn't hit the same way anymore.
Right. In an era of highly scripted, sanitized, and PR-managed television, audiences crave raw, unmonetized trauma because it feels like the last bastion of authenticity.
We want the real mess.
The digital crowd aggressively rejects narratives that lack self-awareness, but they rewarded Risatisa because she meticulously laid out the evidence. She took accountability for ignoring what she called the United Nations of red flags.
I loved that phrase, the United Nations of red flags.
It was so clever. And she invited the audience to examine the evidence alongside her.
She effectively deputized the audience. One user in the sources compared it to a massive cinematic event, calling it R. Kelly's Trapped in the Closet, but from the other perspective.
That's a very apt comparison.
People were treating it like appointment viewing, streaming it on 1.5 speed while doing their laundry, just to consume the data faster. It is trauma binging.
Absolutely.
But, if our attention is so easily hijacked by a compelling, authentic-sounding narrator, it begs a really dangerous question. What happens when the algorithm is optimizing for our biological response to a crying face, rather than verifying the truth of what that face is actually saying?
This brings us to a concept that researchers call epistemic volatility, which is arguably the most dangerous byproduct of the digital Panopticon.
Okay, let's unpack epistemic volatility. Epistemology is the study of how we know what is true. So what does it mean when that becomes volatile?
It means we are operating in an environment where truth is inherently unstable because the systems we use to distribute information do not verify facts. They measure biometric and emotional engagement.
They just care if you're reacting.
Exactly. Short-form video algorithms are designed to prioritize high emotional resonance. If a video makes you outraged, deeply empathetic, or furious, you watch it longer, you comment, you share.
And the algorithm interprets that engagement as value and just pushes it to millions.
Right. Epistemic volatility occurs when the audience conflates a highly resonant emotional performance with objective factual accuracy.
So if someone is highly skilled at performing trauma on camera, the algorithmic public instantly accepts their narrative as absolute truth, completely regardless of objective reality.
Precisely. And the consequences, as we see in the source material, can be devastating.
We have a terrifying case study that illustrates this perfectly.
A mother and daughter case.
Yes. There was a TikTok creator, a mother posting under the handle at Hope and Dimples. She initiates this viral, multi-part video series, making the single most destructive accusation you could possibly levy against a family. She tearfully claims that her husband abandoned her to pursue a romantic sexual affair with her own daughter.
If we look at the mechanics of that specific claim, it is practically engineered in a lab to trigger maximum algorithmic virality.
It hits every single button.
It hits profound maternal abandonment, the utter destruction of the family unit, the deeply taboo nature of incestuous betrayal. It guarantees a massive, instantaneous emotional response from the public.
And the public responded exactly as the algorithm predicted. The audience immediately formed a protective perimeter around the mother and just sharpened their pitchforks for the husband.
And more specifically, the daughter.
Right, the daughter, whose handle was at Mike's Math House. The digital mob descended on the daughter. They flooded her accounts, harassed her relentlessly, and enacted immediate vigilante justice because they fully, unquestioningly believed the mother's performance.
But the reality of the situation, which was eventually uncovered through cross-referencing public records and subsequent investigations, was entirely detached from the narrative the mother presented to the internet.
It wasn't just slightly exaggerated. It was a total fabrication born from a severe psychiatric crisis.
The underlying truth is just heartbreaking.
The mother wasn't the victim of a familial affair. She was experiencing a profound mental health emergency. The reality was that she had broken into her ex-husband's property, gathered his personal belongings, moved them into a storage unit, and literally set them on fire.
She was the one engaging in highly erratic, dangerous, and destructive behavior.
And the daughter, who was currently absorbing the absolute worst of the internet's collective rage, was actually the one trying to manage the crisis.
The daughter was the victim in reality.
Yes. She had been forced to involve law enforcement to protect herself and her father. She was the one who had to navigate the agonizing process of having her mother committed to a psychiatric facility on a 5150 involuntary psychiatric hold.
The situation was so severe that the daughter had to sign legal documents requesting that she receive no further updates on her mother's condition, simply to protect her own physical and mental well-being.
Yet, because the mother got to the algorithm first, and because her performance of suffering was perfectly calibrated for short-form engagement, the epistemic volatility of the platform allowed a psychiatric hallucination to be weaponized as truth.
The viral algorithm subjected an entirely innocent young woman to mass, coordinated harassment.
It is enraging because it lays bare the absolute lack of due process in the digital crowd. The internet operates as judge, jury, and executioner based on a 60-second video of someone crying.
We don't demand cross-examination.
We don't ask for a defense attorney. The speed of algorithmic distribution completely outpaces the speed of truth. By the time anyone figured out the daughter was actually innocent, her digital footprint was permanently scarred by millions of strangers who genuinely believed they were exacting righteous justice.
That is the core danger. The crowd always believes it is acting righteously. But what happens when the target of that self-righteous mob understands the mechanics of the algorithm just as well as the accuser?
This is where the power dynamic flips. We've seen what happens when an innocent person has to hide and absorb the blow. But our next case study shows what happens when the accused decides to reverse engineer the algorithm and fight back using the exact same digital weapons.
The saga of the breakdancing dad.
This brings us to the saga of the breakdancing dad.
This case is a masterclass in modern crisis communication and the weaponization of transparency within a family unit.
Let's lay out the initial strike. We have a comedian and content creator named Maddie Hart. She utilizes the standard storytime format to levy a heavy accusation against her father, Ben Hart.
She claims he is a deadbeat dad.
Right, that he abandoned their family, refused to pay their medical bills, and left them high and dry. And the absurd hook she used to drive engagement. She claimed he abandoned the family specifically to pursue his lifelong dream of breakdancing.
Again, we see the perfect formula for algorithmic traction. It combines real financial and emotional trauma with a highly absurd, memorable visual element.
A middle-aged man abandoning his responsibilities to breakdance.
Right. It establishes a very clear victim and a very easily mockable villain.
But the villain, in this case, totally refused to play his assigned role. Ben Hart, who happens to be a 66-year-old crypto enthusiast, did not issue a standard, boring PR apology.
He understood that the only way to beat a viral narrative is with a more compelling counter-narrative.
So he filmed a clapback video, and he brought receipts. He didn't just deny the claims, he systematically dismantled them. He provided documented evidence of the bills he paid, the financial support he provided, and then, as the ultimate flex to hijack the algorithm, he actually breakdanced on camera to prove he still had the skills.
He counter-programmed her narrative with empirical evidence and spectacle.
And the virality of his defense completely eclipsed her original accusation.
It wasn't even close.
His response video exploded, generating over 33 million views on Twitter alone. It broke containment from standard TikTok drama and became a massive cultural touchstone. Elon Musk interacted with it, praising Ben. Major podcasters and commentators were breaking down the footage.
But to truly understand why this specific family feud escalated to such a nuclear level, we really have to look at the underlying demographic and political markers that the algorithm was leveraging.
And here, it is imperative that we establish clear parameters for our analysis.
Absolutely.
For everyone listening, we are about to discuss the specific political and social viewpoints that the creator Madi expressed in her content as detailed in our sources. We are neutrally reporting this information solely to explain the mechanics of the algorithmic escalation and why the audience's reaction was so polarized.
We are not endorsing, criticizing, or taking any political stance on these viewpoints whatsoever. We are simply observing the data.
Exactly. With that neutrality established, the source material indicates a significant ideological pivot in Madi's digital presence. She had posted videos discussing her upbringing in a highly conservative Republican Christian household.
Even noting that as a child, she had participated in protests against gay marriage.
However, her more recent content represented a complete 180-degree reversal of those childhood paradigms. She was actively posting content celebrating Pride Month, openly identifying as a member of the LGBTQ+ community, and vocally advocating for pro-choice viewpoints.
According to the commentary channels and Ben's subsequent statements, this sharp ideological divergence and her ability to generate viral attention by framing her family history through this controversial lens became a major catalyst for the structural breakdown of the family relationship.
The algorithm loves a wedge issue, and this family provided the ultimate wedge. But the fallout from this friction is what is truly staggering, because Ben didn't stop with a short breakdance and clapback.
He escalated to the nuclear option.
He posted a video on YouTube that was 1 hour and 30 minutes long, an hour and a half, the title of this feature-length film, Why I Cut My Daughter Out of My Will.
It was a systematic, exhaustive public prosecution of his own child. He utilized the platform to argue that her pursuit of online clout, her narcissistic tendencies, and her willingness to publicly destroy her father's reputation for engagement metrics had fundamentally severed their relationship.
And the internet's reaction was the most fascinating part. The digital crowd, which typically defaults to supporting the young, traumatized narrator, completely turned on Madi.
The comments were universally brutal toward her.
They labeled her a textbook narcissist. They hammered on the sheer hypocrisy of a 25-year-old adult expressing deep contempt for her parents while simultaneously complaining to millions of strangers that she was being cut off financially. It was a spectacular backfire.
This reveals a critical nuance about the collaborative intelligence we discussed earlier. The algorithmic public is fiercely loyal to authenticity, but it is deeply punitive the moment it detects entitlement or manipulation.
They turn so fast.
Madi attempted to weaponize the public against her father, assuming they would blindly accept her framing. But Ben successfully counter-weaponized transparency. By providing overwhelming receipts, He fundamentally altered the public's verdict.
It proves that when you invite the digital mob into your living room to attack someone else, you better make sure your own house is perfectly clean, because they will absolutely inspect your closets too.
They absolutely will.
But as destructive as these reputational battles are, they are still largely contained to the digital sphere and family dynamics. I want to shift our focus to what happens when this digital vigilantism breaches the physical world. Let's look at corporate collateral damage, because these viral exposures are creating an absolute nightmare for human resources departments.
The intersection of digital vigilantism and corporate compliance is where we see the most material financial consequences of this phenomenon.
Historically, marital misconduct was a private domestic dispute, right?
Right. But when an affair, specifically a workplace affair, goes viral, it undergoes an immediate state change. It ceases to be a private issue and instantly becomes a severe corporate liability crisis.
We have case study 3 in our sources, which maps this out perfectly. It begins as a text post on Reddit, which is then scraped, aggregated, and disseminated across TikTok through those automated read-through accounts.
You know the ones?
Yeah, where an AI voice reads a Reddit post out loud while footage of someone playing Minecraft runs in the background. So the story is told from the perspective of a corporate executive. He confesses to being deeply entrenched in a workplace affair with a much younger subordinate coworker named Amy, all while being married to his wife, Lisa.
The narrative remains a standard infidelity confession until a third party, Amy's brother, intervenes and introduces hard evidence into the digital public square.
Yes. The brother gets suspicious of Amy's sudden financial windfall, goes digging through her devices, and leaks her private text messages. And these texts completely reframe the narrative.
They really do.
They prove that Amy harbors no romantic feelings for the executive whatsoever. Instead, she is actively clinically manipulating him. She is extracting money from him and explicitly angling to leverage the affair into a major corporate promotion.
The moment those text messages hit the algorithmic public, the company employing them is exposed to massive existential liability.
Because it's not just cheating anymore.
Exactly. The internet is no longer judging a moral failing. They are witnessing documented evidence of an abuse of power, corporate manipulation, and a severely compromised hostile work environment.
The corporate response was instantaneous and ruthless. The company's HR and legal departments mobilized the second the digital footprint was verified. They didn't wait for a formal internal complaint.
They couldn't afford to wait.
Right. They immediately canceled all of the executive's project meetings. They sent security to physically escort him off the corporate premises. They suspended him pending investigation, and ultimately, they fired him. The company had to move with extreme prejudice to protect their brand equity because they knew the collaborative intelligence of the internet was watching their every move.
This represents a massive shift in how accountability is enforced. We are seeing a trend where betrayed spouses or individuals adjacent to the trauma recognize that they can weaponize corporate policy to exact a level of justice that the formal legal system simply does not provide.
Which perfectly transitions us to case study 4, because this tactic of weaponizing HR isn't just a corporate strategy, it's becoming a primary defense mechanism for families.
This one is particularly tough to read.
It is. This is a Reddit post from a 16-year-old girl. She is reaching out to the digital void for advice because she has discovered that her father has been engaging in an affair with his unmarried coworker for nearly a year, and now the coworker is pregnant.
The psychological warfare deployed by the father in this scenario is profoundly damaging, particularly because it is directed at his own adolescent children.
It is incredibly manipulative. Instead of demonstrating an ounce of remorse for fracturing the family, the father attempts to aggressively reframe reality for this 16-year-old and her 12-year-old siblings.
He literally sits them down and refers to his affair and the impending new baby as a, quote, net positive for the family.
A net positive. He begins love-bombing the teenagers, attempting to alienate them from their mother by insisting they're better off without her. He's just weaving these pathological lies in a desperate bid to maintain psychological control and favorably position himself for a custody battle.
And the response from the collaborative intelligence of the internet is highly revealing here. They do not offer emotional platitudes.
Not at all.
The overwhelming consensus from the digital crowd is to bypass the father's emotional manipulation entirely and attack his structural vulnerabilities. They advise the 16-year-old to go straight to the father's HR department.
Exactly. The top comments are literally tactical advice. They are saying, look, wait until your mother's divorce is legally finalized to protect her assets, and the absolute second the ink is dry, you drop the bomb on his company.
Because if this father is in any sort of managerial or supervisory role over this coworker, his entire professional house of cards will collapse.
It is the definition of asymmetric warfare. When a betrayed family feels completely powerless against a manipulative, gaslighting parent, they use the corporation's terror of legal liability as their own personal weapon.
This tactic is born out of a very specific legal vacuum. Why do families resort to proxy courts, like human resources departments or TikTok comment sections? Because in the vast majority of jurisdictions, the legal system offers absolutely zero recourse for the emotional and financial devastation caused by infidelity.
I found the legal history in the sources absolutely fascinating on this point. There are actually a handful of states, North Carolina, Utah, New Mexico, and Mississippi, where a betrayed spouse can still legally sue the affair partner.
It's based on an old common law tort called alienation of affection.
Alienation of affection, right. If someone actively interferes and ruins your marriage, you can literally drag them into civil court. And there is precedent for betrayed spouses winning multi-million-dollar judgments against the person who broke up their family.
But those jurisdictions are extreme anomalies. In modern no-fault divorce paradigms, the legal system is entirely indifferent to the moral or emotional mechanics of the betrayal.
Which leaves people like Valerie Teshenton, whose story was detailed in our sources, completely unprotected. Valerie was a mother battling severe illness, drowning in mounting medical and surgical debt. Her teenage daughter, suspecting the father was lying, actually set up a physical sting operation.
She really did the work.
She caught the father cheating with his coworker in a parking lot and filmed the entire encounter. But despite possessing absolute, undeniable video proof of his betrayal, Valerie was left facing severe financial ruin.
The husband allegedly refused to pay her medical bills.
And the law in her state fundamentally did not care that he was the architect of the family's destruction. The legal system offered her no mechanism for restitution.
And that is the crux of the issue. When formal institutions fail to provide a mechanism for justice, human beings will inevitably seek alternative venues. They turn to the court of public opinion, and by extension, corporate compliance departments, to exact a tangible toll on the guilty parties.
They are crowdsourcing justice because institutional justice is inaccessible.
It is vigilante justice in its purest form.
But as we look at the wreckage of these families, the careers destroyed by HR, the teenagers traumatized by their parents' public exposure, the mothers left with unpaid medical bills, we have to ask the most cynical question of all. Who is actually profiting from this ecosystem? Because it is almost never the victims who walk away whole.
The primary beneficiaries are the architects of what we can call the drama economy.
The creator economy. We are talking about the vast network of commentary podcasts, drama-focused influencers, and reaction channels. The socio-technical report refers to them as digital clearinghouses.
These clearinghouses serve a very specific, highly lucrative function. Shows like the Do We Know Them podcast, hosted by Jesse Smiles and Lily Marston, or Here for the Clout featuring Cece Suarez and Sherilyn Dale, do not generate original trauma.
No, they aggregate it.
Right. They take the sprawling, chaotic, multi-platform drama, the 52-part TikToks, the labyrinthine Reddit threads, the leaked text messages, and they synthesize it into digestible, consumable units for an audience that doesn't have the time to do the forensic work themselves.
Because realistically, most people have jobs. They can't spend 3 days tracking down public court registries to verify a TikTok claim. So these podcasters perform the labor of organizing the receipts.
But the inescapable reality is that their entire economic model relies on monetizing the destruction of real families.
It is the pinnacle of parasocial exploitation. These channels require high-conflict narratives to sustain their engagement metrics, which directly translates to ad revenue. They take severe psychological distress, custody battles, psychiatric breakdowns, and infidelity, and they package it as entertainment.
It is so dystopian when you look at the mechanics of it.
It really is. You are listening to a podcast host meticulously detail the heartbreaking reality of a family being torn apart by a pathological liar, and seamlessly, without taking a breath, there is a pivot to, quote, speaking of needing a doctor after a stressful situation, this episode is sponsored by ZocDoc.
Or, want to smell great while you uncover your husband's secret second family? Get your discounted fragrances at Micro Perfumes.
It's just wild. They are directly monetizing profound human suffering through corporate sponsorships and premium, paywalled Patreon subscriptions. The more devastating the family drama, the higher the viewer retention, the more lucrative the ad read.
It is the ultimate commodification of real-world trauma. The drama economy requires a constant, unending feed of private lives laid bare. This financial incentive ensures that the digital panopticon is constantly expanding,
It's actively encouraging users to expose their families for the chance at temporary algorithmic fame.
which the clearinghouses then harvest for profit.
And the absolute darkest part of this machine is when it targets people who never opted in. The people who never wanted fame, who never posted a story time, who just get caught in the gears of the algorithm. I want to tell you about the most heartbreaking example from our sources.
The 41-year-old UK dad living in Florida.
Yes, this is the definitive example of innocent collateral damage in the algorithmic public. This father did what millions of parents do every single day. He filmed a wholesome, entirely innocent 15-second video of himself doing a goofy dance skit with his 15-year-old and 12-year-old daughters.
Just the dad and his kids making a memory in their living room.
Exactly. But the architecture of the internet does not distinguish between wholesome memories and raw material for exploitation.
A malicious troll account scraped and stole his video.
Right. They re-uploaded it to their own massive following, but they altered the context entirely. They superimposed highly calculated rage bait text over the footage. The text read, quote, "I am 5'11". Guess how much shorter my wife is."
They were intentionally implying that this man's 12-year-old daughter was actually his child bride.
And because this father is a person of color, the algorithm immediately served this video to demographics primed for outrage, and the comment section was instantly flooded with horrific, racist, and sexist vitriol.
With thousands of users claiming this fictitious abuse was, quote, common in his culture.
The asymmetry of power in this situation is staggering. The father was utterly powerless to stop the spread of a narrative he never created. He attempted to use the formal legal tools available to him.
Right, filing DMCA copyright takedown notices to get the stolen video removed.
But as the Reddit legal advice community accurately pointed out to him, the architecture of viral distribution makes that tool functionally useless. You have to file a separate formal legal notice for every single instance the video is re-uploaded by a different user.
It is a game of digital whack-a-mole, and you are playing against a machine that can spawn 1 million new moles a second. A single innocent father cannot win a battle of attrition against a viral algorithm designed to optimize for outrage.
It forces us to confront a chilling reality as we conclude our analysis of these sources. We are engineering systems that permanently archive human behavior, but we are training those systems to optimize strictly for outrage and engagement.
If our actions, our mistakes, our psychiatric crises, and even our most innocent moments are permanently stored, searchable, and weaponized for public entertainment, we are fundamentally altering the human experience.
You really are.
We have to ask, are we evolving society into a space where the concept of forgiveness or private redemption is literally impossible?
Wow.
If your worst moment is forever indexed and monetized by the drama economy, how can a family ever achieve true healing?
That is a profoundly heavy thought to leave on. If the internet never forgets, how can we ever forgive? The architecture of grace requires a space where things can be left in the past, but the algorithm demands that the past remain perpetually present and profitable.
It's true.
It brings us right back to that lock diary we talked about at the very beginning of this deep dive. The brass lock is smashed, the pages are blowing in the wind, and everyone in the stadium is screaming your secrets out loud just to see who gets the most likes.
It's a completely new world.
It really is. And on that note, we want to hear from you. We want you to sound off in the comments section down below. If a family member posted a viral, highly exaggerated, or entirely false story about you online, what would be your strategy?
Would you publicly clap back with receipts like the breakdancing dad, risking further escalation?
Or would you stay completely silent, hoping to starve the algorithm of oxygen? Let us know what you would do. And hey, if you had an aha moment during this deep dive, if unpacking the mechanics of epistemic volatility or collaborative intelligence changed how you view your digital footprint, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel.
It ensures you never miss a deep dive.
And more importantly, it trains the YouTube algorithm. It tells the system that you actually value deep, nuanced mechanical research, and it forces the algorithm to push this kind of content out to more curious learners just like you.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the death of the family secret.
Guard your digital footprint, be careful out there on the algorithmic public, and we will catch you next time.